Hello, everybody. My name is Stephanie Bree. My cat is over here. That's why I keep reaching over here because I'm petting him. And today I'm talking about Street Fighter. This is a Street Fighter retrospective. Um, Street Fighter, specifically Street Fighter 2, but Street Fighter is a video game franchise that was kind of, sort of the companion to Mortal Kombat. But whereas Mortal Kombat was the game the cool kids played, Street Fighter was the kid that the anime nerds played because they were nerds. And not the cool nerds, who read comic books, but the dorks who fucking join mathletes and shit like that. Don't get me wrong, I like Street Fighter 2. It's a fun game. But let's be real, it's no fucking Mortal Kombat. It's not. But my personal introduction to Street Fighter is going to explain why I have some animosity towards the franchise. So, long before there were arcade Street Fighter fighting games, maybe they existed, but long before I ever played them, I had a little game on the Nintendo Entertainment System called Street Fighter 2010. If you want to know how bad this game is, the Angry Video Game Nerd, James Rolfe, did a good job shitting on this game, so I don't need to. It sucks. And so my first impression of Street Fighter was it was bullshit. So I went into the franchise with, fucking sour taste in my mouth. My first one-on-one fighting game in the arcades was Mortal Kombat. Actually, Mortal Kombat 2, technically. And so I was obsessed with Mortal Kombat to the point, an unhealthy obsession, by the way, to the point where I would literally steal money to go to the arcade to play Mortal Kombat. I would do whatever I could to get quarters to go play Mortal Kombat. I was obsessed. And then I discovered this game sitting next to the Mortal Kombat machine in one of the arcades in the Dirt Mall. Yes, we had a Dirt Mall. It was the old mall before the new mall came to town and pretty much put them out of business. But I would still go to the arcade in the Dirt Mall because they had games that the other mall didn't have. Older games by and large. And I saw this game called Street Fighter 2 something or other. I don't remember which version it was because there were fucking like 8 versions of that game. So I don't remember exactly which one it was. And I thought, this looks interesting. So I played a few rounds, got bored, and decided didn't like it. Now, I have to be upfront. I've already said this before elsewhere. I do not like cartoons, and I hate anime. So, Street Fighter 2 is a fucking anime cartoon video game. So, it automatically loses cool points in my book because I don't fucking like anime. But when I was 13 and I was shopping for Sega Genesis games because I had a job. I was delivering newspapers after school and I had money to spend. I was in a local grocery store in Hastings, Nebraska, and they had some used Sega Genesis games for sale. They had 3 of them, so I bought all 3 of them. They had a game called Boogerman, which I'll talk about. I want to do a whole video on Boogerman. I'll get there. They had Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and they had Street Fighter 2 Special Champion Edition. So I bought it because they were like $5 a pop. So I was like, hey, $15, I can get 3 Sega Genesis games. Whatever, I'll take a chance. Went home, played Boogerman. It was fun. I will talk about it. Popped in Sonic 3, didn't work. I cleaned out the cartridge, blew the dust out, rubbed it down with the alcohol, put it in, didn't work. Took it back to the store, got my money back. Because it didn't play. It didn't even turn on. And then I popped in Street Fighter 2 Special Champion Edition. And I realized... so let me back it up a little bit. By this point, I had already discovered World Heroes, which I did like. And King of Fighters, which I did like. And Samurai Showdown, which I did like. So I had warmed up to the cartoon-style 2D fighting game. And so I decided to give Street Fighter 2 a second chance. And I did. And lo and behold, Street Fighter 2 Special Champion Edition on the Sega Genesis was a good game. And I remember asking myself, wait a second. If there's like a whole bunch of Street Fighter 2, you know, editions or whatever, because they even talked about this in gaming magazines. They made fun of it back then. When is Street Fighter 3 ever coming? I remember that. It was like a running joke. And I remember asking, where the fuck is Street Fighter? Well, I wouldn't learn that answer to that question until a long time later. So let's focus. So I also picked up a Super Nintendo later that year, and I bought a game called Street Fighter Alpha 2 for the Super NES. And I played a little bit of it, and I wasn't a fan. I just wasn't. It did nothing for me. So I went back to, okay, maybe Street Fighter isn't that great. Maybe just the Genesis one was good. Eventually, I ended up getting a Nintendo 64, and there were no Street Fighter games on it, but there were Mortal Kombat games, so there is that. Thumbs up. And I ended up getting a Sony PlayStation, which did have Street Fighter games. So I bought X-Men Children of the Atom, which is, you know, a Street Fighter game with X-Men characters. I got Marvel vs. Capcom. I got X-Men vs. Street Fighter. Those were all good games. And I decided to try Street Fighter Third Strike. And this was one of the few games, there's not very many. This was one of the few games I took it right back to the store and said, give me my money back. This is a piece of shit. I did not like Street Fighter Third Strike. It wouldn't be until the Wii that I would give Street Fighter 2 another chance. Because up to this point, I had only played Special Champion Edition on the Genesis, and I wasn't willing to play other Street Fighter games because I was into other better fighting games, in my opinion. And then, when I got the Wii, I got obsessed with the Virtual Console because I got addicted to downloading games. And I bought all the ones that were on the Super Nintendo. So I got Street Fighter 2, The World Warrior, Street Fighter 2 Hyper Fighting, and Super Street Fighter 2. And they were close enough to Special Champion Edition that I was like, okay, this is familiar. So I developed an appreciation, slowly over time, for Street Fighter 2. When I got my PlayStation 3, one of the first games I bought, because it was a budget title, it was only $15, I picked up Super Street Fighter 4 because I thought, okay, fuck it, I'll give it a shot. And I did like it. And I was like, okay, this is pretty fucking cool. So at that point, I had a PS1 and a PS2 and a PS3. So I decided to get the Street Fighter collection for PS1, and then there was also a Street Fighter collection on PS2. So I bought both of them through a used video game store that just happened to have them at a fair price, I'll say. Not a reasonable price, but fair compared to what they were going for elsewhere, is what I'll say. So I bought them and I played them, and once again I decided I wasn't a fan of Third Strike at all, any of the Street Fighter 3s. But I was warming up to Street Fighter Alpha and Street Fighter Alpha 2. I was starting to warm up to those. And so I downloaded the Ultra Street Fighter 2 Turbo digital game on PS3, and I had a blast with that. And I had a chance to buy Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo on PS1 for $20 once, and I, like a dumbass, passed that up. And don't look up the price of that game today. Just don't. And so I missed out on that opportunity. But it is what it is. And once I got a PS4, first game I bought, one of the first games, not the first game, but one of the first like 5 or 6 games I bought for it was Street Fighter 5. And I had a lot of fun with that. And so over time, I loosened up on my hatred of the 2D animated graphics and realized, you know what, this can be fun. This can be fun. And over time, I got better at fighting games, you know, playing other games like World Heroes, King of Fighters, Final Fight. Well, I guess that was a beat 'em up, but, you know, Samurai Showdown, Fighters Megamix, Virtua Fighter, Tekken, the Mortal Kombats, etc. After a while, I got good, and good enough at playing fighting games. I could appreciate what Street Fighter did. And then I discovered the Angry Video Game Nerd, and he did a video on Fighting Street, which was the home console version of Street Fighter, the original, for the TurboGrafx 16. And amazingly, that ROM was available for purchase on the Nintendo Wii Virtual Console, so I bought it. And again, I regret buying it, but it is what it is. Now, when I said I got good enough at Street Fighter to appreciate it, I literally mean I got good enough at it to get to the final boss, never got good enough to beat it, and I am not good enough to beat anyone else, two-player, in that game in a one-on-one competition. So, I'm not like a champion level Street fighter, don't get me wrong. I'm just good enough to get to the final boss and then get my ass kicked and then give up. So I put Street Fighter, and I'm saying Street Fighter is a franchise, but I'm mostly talking Street Fighter 2 and Street Fighter 4 here, in the canon of fighting video games. But it's not really my favorite, to be honest. I prefer Mortal Kombat. And I just, you know, I have an appreciation for Street Fighter 2, but it's not like my fucking go-to game. You know what I'm saying? When I'm looking for a fighting game, there's better fighting games. It's one that, if I don't have a choice, or there's nothing else to play, or if I'm bored with the other fighting games, I'll pop it in for a while. But I'm going to get more out of Primal Rage than I am Street Fighter 2. Let's be real. Because I really loved Primal Rage back in the day. And Street Fighter 2 was just kind of like, even though it came out first, it felt like a King of Fighters knockoff. Like, I know King of Fighters did it better because it came after Street Fighter 2 and perfected the formula. But I'm going to be up front. King of Fighters is where it's at in the 2D fighting game space. If you want to play a quality, good, consistently good 2D anime style fighting game, King of Fighters is where you want to put your money, not Street Fighter.